Murder rates in Jamaica. It in such a way as to connect it to the year before and sometimes even 2 years before. And it says, when the lives of 296 people are snuffed out by violent means in the first 6 months of 1 year in a small country like Jamaica, it is serious business. It is even more serious when over 50% of those killed died at the hands of gunmen in violence. A violence that is politically motivated and inspired. Violent crime has continued to be an integral part of national life, in spite of the denials of the politicians whose favorite pastime is blaming the other side for the violence and claiming the dead as their supporters. The crime rate in Jamaica is higher today than it was in what in Jamaica we call the bloodiest period in Jamaica's political history. And that is a conundrum, isn't it? But here we are. So we say Jamaica is safer today than it was in 1980. But we're seeing an organization or an organizing in a transnational way of crime in Jamaica that is frightening now, even more frightening than when the CIA was operating on this island, 1976, 1980, mid-1980s. And their children now involved. And it is at the highest levels. At some point, we're going to have to face the reality of where we are and who we are. They waged a media campaign in Jamaica to diminish tourism and investment. They said that they did. There was economic manipulation, including fomenting a lot of strikes and stopping credit. There was gun smuggling done by them to opposition-aligned factions. There was even arson and poisoning. Lived condition, as opposed to what we are being told about how we are living. So many of us have bought into this idea of what they're telling us, because they tell us about prosperity. They tell us that we're doing much better than we've ever done. And so we've bought into this. And what are we doing? We're taking out loans to go to stage shows. We're buying cars instead of building houses. We think we're living a fake life. And we're bought into this idea to fake it until we make it. Faking it until you make it not going to get you anywhere. If you are somebody who has faith, then probably you can faith, F-A-I-T-H, faith it until you make it. In other words, believing that you can, but putting in the work to ensure that you do. And we're seeing two whole generations, probably more, 4 generations. But we're seeing a whole lot of people on this island who are totally helter-skelter, madness, without thinking of what happens when I'm no longer 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 35. What then? And this society is not necessarily, and the system is not necessarily preparing you for it. So there is a need for us to reflect on ourselves and reflect within ourselves, because nothing is preparing us for this. This conversation not happening in the schoolrooms, it's not happening in the communities, it's not happening in the churches. We're taking things for granted, that what they say we are experiencing is really what is happening. But when you go home, if you have a home to go to, you'd ask yourself, me rent it or me buy it? Or do I even have, or may I catch after me come back from the stage show that me spend so much time, outfit and all. And it suits them for you to be this detached from reality. It suits the narrative. It suits a purpose. But are we building a nation or are we building a hut? Let me take a break. Problem in the studio regarding, how things playing or not playing. So we are relying on the other stuff. So let me see how we're doing. All right. Thank you so much for joining us on the 107s, 107.1 all the way to 107.9 on the internet at irefm.net on your mobile apps. However you're listening to us this morning, thank you so much for joining us inside of the Africa Forum. What I think, we see what's happening at Sumfest. Friday night it was. That was one of the, we understand, one of the biggest. I think it's debatable. I think people are saying it's debatable as to whether or not it wasn't like the biggest night in Sumfest history. And there was a stampede there. That is being reported on widely. So we're paying attention to that. Interesting that, well, I'm just looking at the report coming out. For example, one report spoke of the energy, or high the energy and the excitement was in the early hours of Saturday morning, which had been Friday night going into Saturday morning, when the stampede broke out, causing several patrons to be hurt. I'm not quite sure the extent of the hurt and to be injured. The catalyst for that, we're seeing another report where I think Sumfest and Down Sound Record have also said that there was a breach in the fence, the security fence between VIP and the others. A fence breach occurred between general admission and VIP areas during the crowning of Vibes Cartel as a king of the dancehall, and this triggered a mass crowd surge and subsequent stampede inside Catherine Hall. And I've been listening to some witnesses giving report about falling over, about people stepping on them, broken ankles, injured spines, and other injuries. Quite a few persons who were in the fracas have already spoken out, have taken to social media. Some were speaking on the spot. There's some live reporting also, persons who were recording inadvertently, while they're running away from the stampede. We're still recording, so that there's a lot out there about what happened at Sumfest. The organizers said that they activated emergency protocols for last night, and I suppose we haven't heard any report coming out of last night. But it seems to me that there are questions to be answered by Sumfest about how this happened, especially against the background of some of the witnesses reporting, which, word of mouth, you hear witnesses saying that it happened 3 times. You hear witnesses talking about whether or not there were enough security on the ground, and then other witnesses challenging that to say there was enough security on the ground. So obviously a lot of questions to be answered by Sumfest. It was, and the extent to which Sumfest was prepared for that eventuality is something that must be answered. How come that fence was breached? What kind of fence was it? How was it easily breached? What triggered that breach? And that crowd surge dynamics. This happens at big, massive shows all the time, this crowd surge dynamics. And was Sumfest aware? Well, obviously you must have been aware of this. This was likely to happen. Barriers falling, people pushing against fences and so on. And that can trigger chain reactions. So to what extent were, the mitigating stuff put in place to ensure that wouldn't happen? So if that is a trigger, because this is a reporting that was a trigger, then, obviously Sumfest has a lot to answer. But regardless of what's happening on the social media, the claims that we're seeing there, I'm not seeing a reporting of any deaths. Let me say that. We're hearing a lot about the crowd surge leading to minor injuries, and some people saying that they've been badly injured. But I would be concerned about this if I was Sumfest. Very, very concerned. Sumfest has already put out a statement. They have acknowledged that the stampede happened, and they have also said that several patrons were injured. They talked about emergency protocols that were activated promptly, as I said before. They say that the incident was triggered when fencing separating general admissions and VIP, those areas, was pushed down, and that created a crowd surge. Seeing another reporting of whether or not things were thrown on stage and so on. And Sumfest has said that a full review is underway in conjunction with the law enforcement and crowd control consultants to assess what happened and to identify the areas of improvement. It's not a good look for Sumfest. This is a global event, and questions, many questions, right? So although there was prompt acknowledgement, which is good, and the cause was identified, seems as if there was also a quick stabilization. Sumfest says there's ongoing review, and they can look again at the immediate measures that were put in place. So Reggae Sumfest has put out that statement. I think the others down sound might have put out a statement also. All right, so for Sumfest, I mean, I've been to Sumfest. I used to cover Sumfest for the station, so some Sunsplash, then Sumfest. I've been there, many in the 35 years of IRFM. I've been going to Sumfest for probably 20 of those years. So, you understand that whole dynamic and how critical that and frightening that can be if you're in that kind of space. So I am especially concerned about what happened, because at the end of the day, the organizers, your first commitment is to the safety of the patrons. That's your first commitment at all times, the safety of the patrons, and everything else comes after that. So I'd like to hear from Sumfest outside of a press release. I don't know if they've done interviews yet to look back at this. The festival might still be going on even as we speak. But yeah, for me, that was a serious situation, and it could have been worse. When I look at the videos, it could have been worse. One of the reasons why, for myself, I stopped attending a particular massive festival that used to happen in Montego Bay every year, and it's not Sumfest and it's not a Sunsplash, but it was a very elitist, massive festival. And I used to go there every year. And I remember the last year I went was when we had a mini stampede, and people stepping on my foot and me run out of my shoes, and me enjoy at the place, just, finding ourselves in a situation that was really, really frightening for a moment. So I didn't go back after that. And then I remember in the early days going to, I used to cover the sound system dance, and because I used to do the entertainment program, so I was covering all of those. And I remember going to a dance in Spanish Town, and this was when you recognize now that the gun salute get out of hand. And the minute them goes a bow bow, and there was this gun salute, and people start run left, right, and center, and you find yourself with your little 199 pounds and your 5 feet 5 inches tall short situation, and and that was such a frightening moment. I don't think I cover no more dance all from that sound system could have played till I'm blue in the face. I ain't going. No, it is an occupational hazard, but we must be prepared. The organizers must be prepared for this. And usually the fire people will look at your advertising, your marketing campaign, look at the people you're carrying in, and they will tell you, and they should, and not only them, parish council, people will question this to say, all right, you have Vibes Cartel. He is on a roll right now. Look how him full up the stadium. He's playing in New York. He's playing all over the world. He's playing in London, and the turnout is massive. Do you expect that stadium-size crowd? Can Catherine Hall manage that? What do you have in place to ensure that you don't have a bottleneck? If there's a stampede? How? All these questions. And the fire people, because I've produced a lot of events where the people from the fire department say, you can't go on with it. You have to move it from this venue. Remember one year we moved an event we were having from the courtyard here in IRFM to Buckfield, Playfield. And the reason for that was the fire department said to us, we see your marketing campaign, we hear what you're doing, we understand what you're doing, this is going to be massive. There's no way that your IRFM courtyard can manage this. You have to move it. Another year we move it to Andernet Center. And we had to move it to Andernet Center same way because the fire department said, your courtyard not going to hold this. So you take it away from the courtyard. So the crowd was not only that, early in the evening, looking at all the drone footage coming from across, the Observer was reporting on the drone footage, the IRFM was showing drone footage, and there was a whole lot of conversation about the traffic heading into Montego Bay from Kingston. When you look at those drone footage, it was frightening. It's like, goodness, if you were in that traffic, you would have been in there forever. So that's something that there was an indication that Catherine Hall was going to be bursting at the seams. And this is why I'm saying that there are questions for some fest to answer. The response in the aftermath, I think, I don't know all about it, I'm just reading, but it seems as if it was good. This is what I'm reading, even though I'm hearing people on the social media saying the response beaches. There is an update specifically relating to the Little Duns River. The court was in session on that on Thursday. Founding director and president of JABEM, Dr. Devon Taylor, is on the phone lines. Dr. Taylor, good morning. Greetings.
Greetings, Kabu. Greetings to the Africa Forum family. Good to be here.
Good thing. Are you on the island?
No, I stay away. You know what I mean.
Oh, I thought you had some fest. I'm just checking to see how you're doing if you were there.
No, they don't want to be caught in the stampede, you know.
Yeah. So we're checking in to make sure our family is doing well. So, Dr. Taylor, for our listeners who are hearing us for the very first time, just contextualize for us as quickly as you can what JABEM is and your latest activism, JABEM's latest activism in challenging the Beach Management Act and the colonial laws relating to beach access here in Jamaica.
Yeah, so JABEM is a grassroots organization that is rooted in equal rights and justice, rooted in environmental justice, rooted in social justice, and rooted in economic justice. And we are responding to what has happened on the island in regards to the displacement, the dispossession, and the disempowerment of the Jamaican people from beaches, from rivers, as a result of colonial laws. Colonial law, in particularly the Beach Control Act of 1956, that does not give Jamaicans the right to bathe, the right to swim, the right to walk along the foreshore, and the right to fish. A law that excludes Jamaicans from participation in coastal economics, blocking us out from truly benefiting from tourism, and the law that allows tourism to displace our people, to degrade our environment, and to disempower our people. So as much as many Jamaicans along the coast benefit some bit from tourism, we are not realizing the benefits thereof. And in turn, the government, through this law, has enabled the tourism product to displace our people from all these coastal spaces. We're losing them on a rapid basis. And so Jabem is, responding to that injustice. And we respond to the injustice in several ways. The ones that are aware of our advocacy across the island as we bring this education to the Jamaican people that says, look, a law was written in 1956, went through your parliament, passed, and since then, the law will be 70 years old next year. A 69-year-old law sits on the books in Jamaica that continue to hurt the country, that continue to destroy our environment, hurt our people, and displaces us from these environment. And so we are advocating to you that, listen, we need to have this law repealed and replaced. And the education that we're giving you is that it's written on the books, and the government is complicit in it. It has issued more than 366 licenses across the country, and those licenses are licenses that supports your displacement, and your government is complicit with the hotel sector in doing so. And in addition to giving you that information to say it is time for us to act collectively on behalf of this present, but more so the future generation who will be landlocked. We are doing these.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And brilliant work. And so so cases are ongoing. Lots of them have been brought because it's an interesting thing that the people of Jamaica have to be fighting the government of Jamaica, which is representative of the people of Jamaica, or should be representative of the people of Jamaica, fighting them in the court for access to land, access to the beach, access to the sea. You talk about the how egregious, how insidious this situation is. Jamaica is locked off, or Jamaicans are locked off from access to so much of the coastline of Jamaica. Little Duns River is the people of Jamaica, the masses of the people of Jamaica, the belly of Jamaica, the people response to Big Duns River, because Jamaican people cannot afford to go into Duns River, Big Duns River. That's a tourist situation. We cannot afford it. Even if you're alone, worse if it's you and two people from your family, partner and child. That is almost it's you cannot. All right. And so over the years, the people of they've found another outlet just above it, depending on which direction you're heading into, Big Duns River. And people over the years, over decades, curated that spot, literally reworked themselves into creating a space for the people, very small space, but for the people to enjoy a mini waterfall and a little beach. And they have been there for me come a Ochi them today, and we come in a Ochi in the 1980s. So that is to show you how long, but they are now fighting for their lives. And so Jabem has been one of those leading the charge in taking this through the courts after demonstrations and demonstrations and demonstrations. The next level was to move it into the courts. There's been an ongoing situation. It looked as if there was good news a few weeks ago or a few days ago, and it seems to me as if there's still some good news on that. So what's the latest?
Right. So, we were in court on Thursday, and, the court pretty much is addressing two elements of the case right now. So, as we know, the prescriptive rights, is where, we have been using those tracks and roadways for more than 20 years. That condition has been met, 3 times. They've been there since the 50s. So, the prescriptive rights is a no-brainer. The government expressed a willingness to settle that issue, to say, well, listen, we're going to make this space a public beach, right? But what the government is not doing, right, is the plaintiffs who are the one who, gave us the legitimacy. They're the one who's made the tracks and the pathway to the beach. They're the one who, established the space. They're not, willing to allow them to stay on the land, right, to continue what they do there. You know, they provide music, and they provide, refreshments. You know, they provide shoes for you to walk. You know, those who cannot handle the rocks. You know, they provide a place for you to change. You know, I mean, they've provided you some food. I mean, these ones, right, are the ones who we know are intricately linked to that land. And they are the ones who give us the legitimacy, and the government is not willing.
Let me ask you this, because I hear you saying that so far, so the government is not willing, that's through the UDC, to allow those people. We talk about those people who literally curated the spot, those people who found the spot, who has been on the spot forever. They made it into what it is today. The fact that we're even calling it Little Duns River is them. These are the people we're talking about. The government is saying what? That the space is going to be open to the public, which is what we're fighting for, but that the people who made it what it is today, that they are not allowed, they're not part of that agreement still?
Yeah, so just to make that explicitly clear, they are the plaintiff, right? They brought the case to the court in collaboration with Jabem. The government is saying we cannot give you any guarantees that we can allow you to stay there. And that's where, all the discussions are going to continue. So the court has asked, our legal team and the UDC legal team to iron this out, outside the court. Can you sit down, work something out, right? That is going to, that the court can look at, and make a call on. Right? So that's where we are right now. We are here where the judge has given its instruction, all right, and the two sides, right, which one I'll call the people's side, right, and the government now have to sit down and iron this thing out. And we are open, sincerely open, because we do not go back to court until October the 28th. So there are quite a few months in there, right? A general election is going to be called. And, we may have same government or different government, but the same problem is going to be on the table. And so we are asking the Jamaican people, right, how does it look that these plaintiffs, these virgins who have established this space, and you, the public, who have been using this space, right, interacting with the cultural element in the space, part of that is the people who make it what it is. Why cannot there be guarantees that these individuals are allowed to stay? The case would have been done, hands down, if the UDC accepted that premise and accepted that truth and that fact. Right?
So the fight is with the UDC. So the fight is, which is really a government agency, but you're saying there's a fight with the UDC right now on this?
Yes, but the UDC is a government agency, and it's UDC operates very strange. I quite don't completely understand whether or not they are a government entity, they're a quasi-government entity, they're a private entity. I really don't understand how they operate, because if they truly operated, in the interest of the Jamaican people, then this decision would be very simple. And the UDC have a board of directors, and of course that, UDC sits in a government
operating like
agency.
a private company on behalf of the tourism industry. So we could just move right along. We're out of time, Devon. So let me just underscore now. So where we are is now two sides to sit down, to come to an amicable agreement, and then to take that to the judge. So this is something the judge can look at. And Jabem is saying, we're not going forward without the plaintiffs who bought this.
We cannot move forward without the people. And the people here who represent us for the last 3 years are those plaintiffs. And we can't move forward without them.
They're asking us to do something about us without us. It is ridiculous. But anyway, let's see where it goes. Well, at least there is that. And that's some movement away from where we were just a few years ago. So there's some movement here. It should be faster, but we'll take it as it comes and then see what happens in October. So please keep us updated, Devon, as to how this unfolds.
I will, and I want to put a plug in for Mommy Bay, because next week, Thursday the 24th, we're in court around the Mommy Bay case, and that is going to be a very interesting court, because we're at a tipping point right now, where this case may move into the Court of Appeals, because the defendants are appealing a decision in here, And this case is now reached a very critical space. In Jamaica, this has been a registered deed since 1976.
Who are the
Again,
defendants? Who are the defendants?
The defendant in here are Riverland Holding is one of the companies that we're up against, and the other is Cepheus Holdings. So two private companies who have, bought that property, which led to the displacement of the communities in and around Steertown, Marmy Bay. This will be a very important case for you to, come and see.
We keep our eyes on that. Thank you so much, Devon. Dr. King, to Dr. Rosemary Mealy, and to Sahini Das, and a little bit about them. Well, let me tell you first of all what we're talking about, because in response to the U.S. government's attack, and we've been covering this widely on this program, against the Cuban Global Medical Brigade, which saves lives throughout the Americas, including here in Jamaica, Africa, and specifically in the Caribbean, Cuba solidarity activists in the United States are responding, and they're using their technology and media skills in the disinformation war. The project is called Carlotta's Warriors, and it is aimed at Gen Zs with the objective to push back against U.S. interference in the Caribbean, where sovereign nations are being challenged by the Trump administration's use of bullying tactics such as visa sanctions, economic threats against those governments utilizing Cuba's overseas medical missions. We heard questions came up here on the island when Marco Rubio was here. Also, the Cuba Global Health the Cuba Global Health Brigades offer programs which are vital to healthcare systems. We are beneficiaries of that on the island here in Jamaica, and have been operating across the region for decades. So Dr. Rosemary Mealy, JD, PhD, is an activist and educator. She has been acknowledged for her long history of engaged community activism and contributions to artistic innovation, education, scholarly endeavors, and international human rights struggles. She is a longtime friend of Cuba. She has lived and worked in that country as an internationalist and journalist at Radio Havana, Cuba. And her participation in international forums with non-governmental organizations has garnered global recognition and respect for her advocacy in defense of U.S. political prisoners, gender equality, and the illegal imposition of U.S. economic and political sanctions against sovereign nations, including Cuba. And joining Dr. Mealy online is our sister Sahini Das. She is one of the curators of Carlotta's Warriors. She is a NYC community organizer with Education Justice Coalitions and groups organizing with Black, immigrant, and working class families. She's an arts teacher and a PhD student, and aims to collectively create community-based spaces for liberatory education and organizing a socialist future with youth and children. Liberatory. We just messed that up. All right. Thank you so much, both of you, Dr. Mealy and Sahina Das, for joining me on the phone lines. Welcome to the Africa Forum.
Good morning, sister. Sorry we had a little techno problems, but as usual, the ancestors always come in. Thank you so much for having us today. And I'm going to let Sohini take over, because you know how we let the young people push forward. But I just want to say that I want to congratulate you and the work that you're doing and your staff, and also the fact that you're giving us this platform to share this information this morning. The other thing that I want to tell the people of Jamaica is we're so proud of you, especially the Jamaican Cuba Solidarity Movement, which has been in the forefront raising this issue. And it's just wonderful to have these kinds of links with our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean to carry forth this information. You know, just one point, you know, the United States always justifies intervention by finding some way to claim a need to what they call maintain order and protect life, and also interfering in other nations' solidarity. as sovereignty rather. So that's what we're really trying to do, and young people are taking the lead on this. So thank you so much again for giving us this airspace.
And especially here on the island, you're welcome, and thank you for making the time. We here in Jamaica, as a matter of fact, we're going to be discussing some of that later on this morning. We're living that interference that the United States interfered in Jamaica between 1976 and 1980, 85 through to 85 in such an egregious manner that the aftermath of that, we're living the consequences of that even today, that interference by the United States in Jamaica because of Jamaica's relationship with Cuba. And this is interesting. So that, that both things are connected, and we didn't even plan it that way, but this is how it is working out. So my sister Sahini, it's very important to kind of refocus the attention and to shift the narrative, isn't it? Because this really became the big story just a few months ago.
Yes, it is important to shift the narrative, to understand, the broader context. But first of all, thank you for having us on this show. Very excited to share more and speak to our young folks across the Caribbean, across Jamaica. But we understand, right, the Cuban Medical Brigade. The Cuban Medical Brigade has sent over 600,000, right, healthcare workers, doctors to more than 165 countries since 1963. And, this is more than any country like Canada, United Kingdom, United States has done combined to provide healthcare services to countries across the world. And so what Cuba is providing is something that no other country, right, has been able to provide to countries, to provide this life-saving healthcare. We are understanding now this attack, right, by the United States on the Cuban Medical Brigade, not only is an attack on Cuba and its sovereignty, but also it's how it's punishing and punishing the sovereignty of other sovereign nations across the Caribbean with this lie that the Cuban Medical Brigade is a human trafficking, that the doctors are not voluntary, the doctors do not choose to go on these medical missions. And we here with Carlotta's Warriors really are trying to debunk this disinformation, that the Cuban Medical Brigade and the doctors as part of the Cuban Medical Brigade are truly voluntary and choosing to go on these trips, are trained in quality health care with equipment. Cuban medicine has been known to be one of the best medical programs in the world. Even training doctors, the Latin American School of Medicine, the ELOM program, providing scholarships to students across the world to come and learn and train in medicine. So Cuban medicine and Cuban doctors are providing quality medicine to countries across the Caribbean, across Latin America, across Africa. And so we really want to debunk this idea that this is not voluntary or that this is something that is being pushed and forced, but that the Cuban altruism and Cuban humanitarianism as a principle is what guides this medical brigade.
And this is how are you doing this? How are you debunking this?
Yes, so we are a social media campaign. The Carlotta's Warriors is a social media campaign. We are launching on July 26th on Instagram, Carlotta's Warriors, and we are highlighting, right, stories, the true stories of individuals who have received health care from Cuban doctors across different countries, receiving Cuban medical, who have Cuban Medical Brigade in their countries. We are also highlighting the truth and facts around how many life-saving procedures Cuban doctors have provided, what kinds of procedures, from cataract surgery to providing support across all forms of procedures and medicine. And we want to highlight these facts on our page in a way not only to show the ways in which the Cuban Medical Brigade has been so important to these many countries, but also to highlight this in counter to the lies being spread by the United States media and the United States government.
All right.
And Yes.
All right, hold for me. I'm to guess in line, Dr. Rosemary Mealy and Sahini Das, and really and truly launching what I think is a critical social media campaign on July 26th to push back at the narrative that we're getting out of the United States regarding the Cuba Medical Brigade, which we use. We have this in Jamaica, and so dependent on this in a pretty serious way, actually. We could go into this over and over. Dr. Mealy, what was the catalyst for this and your students? Because we know this is a Gen Z focused, and we were just hearing from Sahini. I think it's brilliant that it's Gen Z focused for those of us who have historical knowledge of where this came from and how this came about. We can better understand this and have our critical discussions around it. But for Gen Z, they're coming into this hearing all of this information and totally conflicted by it. What was behind this drive? And tell us a little bit about how the trip to Cuba led to this.
Well, thank you. I think that's important. One of the things that we've been doing here in the U.S. is organizing young people to actually take them to Cuba. As limited as we here in the U.S. are allowed to travel to Cuba, we can only go there under 12 categories. And for those folk like us, we only fit in one, and that's usually a category called support for the Cuban people, quote unquote. And so what we try to do is we try to organize young people to go to Cuba, see for themselves what's going on, talk to young people, and we're not about duplicating the social structure of Cuba, but for our young people to learn and to see the fact that healthcare in this country it's just horrible, as you know, and with the budget cuts and what have you, there are aunties who and grandmothers who are unable to get access to healthcare. So these young people go and they see for themselves. And then many of them come back wanting to integrate their knowledge base into their own political work. And given that this antagonistic campaign against Cuba by the U.S. government was right in the forefront, as a media person myself, I felt that working with young people, my best role was to share this information and to contextualize how they could best use in their own language, their own technological skills to put forth what they saw and to counter this argument. One of the things that I liked about what they said was, listen, the United States government will continuously attack Cuba or any country that's opposed to it as an empire. Mm-hmm. What we need to do is educate the next generation. Let's think about the next generation and how we can shift and change their minds, change their narrative. And I thought that was great because oftentimes as elders and folk like us, yes, we want to see immediate gratification. We want to see immediate results. But they have such a forward way of looking at their life and how the future is going to impact them. So that was basically foundational to how they approached the project, that we want to focus on our generation. And I thought that was just the best way to do this work, and they've taken it up. So that's
brilliant, brilliant. And how do you, Sahini, what do you want to say to young people, Gen Zs who are listening, and Gen Xs who are listening this morning, who can participate in this and also participate in the launch on July 26th?
Yes, we are asking for stories, right? If young folks have stories of being treated by Cuban doctors, of stories that they know about Cuban doctors treating their friends, their family, their neighbors, we're asking for folks to share their stories so we can feature true stories of Cuban doctors and the life-saving services that they provide across the Caribbean and other spaces in our social media page on Carlotta's Warriors. So if you would like to reach out to us, share these stories on Carlotta's Warriors on Instagram, you can send us an instant message, a direct message, and we would love to connect and feature stories.
So the page is already up on Instagram, even though the launch is on the 26th.
Yes. So, although we are launching on the 26th, the page is up. People can reach out for messages and their stories, and we will definitely be in contact with folks.
All right, spell that for us. Carlotta's Way. C-A-R.
Carlotta's Voice. C-A-R-L-O-T Warriors.
And why did you name it Carlotta's Warriors? I think that's going to be important for people to know.
Yes.
Yes. We named ourselves the Carlotta's Warriors after a woman named Carlota Lucumi, who was an enslaved African woman in Cuba, who actually led a rebellion in 1943 in the city of Matanzas. As a group of us young folks, when we visited Cuba, we actually got the chance to see a huge statue actually of Carlota in Matanzas and to learn more about her and the rebellion that she led. And so we, drawing from this spirit of rebellion and resistance, we also wanted to center that Cuba is also an Afro-Cuban history, and the society that we saw in Cuba was led and made up by Afro-Cubans practicing Santeria in all the spaces that we were, meeting young folks, meeting young Cubans, learning about their African ancestry in Cuba. And we chose this name, Carlotta's Warriors, to honor this lineage, right, of African rebellion, and to internationalize this fight against U.S. imperialism from here, right here in the belly of the beast in the United States. So Carlotta's Warriors is our way to share with the world not only Carlotta's story, but also to show that we honor her lineage and want to continue that rebellion and fight today.
All right, so let me just...
also the name of...
Go ahead.
It was also the name of an important battalion that contributed to liberating Angola during the fight against apartheid in South Africa. And so internationalizing her name is important because the Cubans embraced Carlota in that battle, which infuriated, by the way, the South African government and also the U.S. government, because it was like the first time that the global world was defeated with the support of Cuba in an international struggle against apartheid that led to the liberation of Nelson Mandela. So I think that's another aspect that they're utilizing that name that's symbolic, that will internationalize this work.
Brilliant. Let me just say to our listeners, if you are on Instagram, you can go there now, and it's Carlotta's Warriors, Carlotas, Warriors, WARRIORS, and start following, even though it's going to be launched on July 26th, so you won't see anything there now, but start following in advance and be part of the activities that are going to be taking place on Instagram. And once again, just to underscore, Sahini, that you're asking young people and others to send their stories, their interaction with Cuban medical doctors wherever they are, whether it's here on the island in Jamaica, in the Caribbean, people are listening online at irfm.net, or those who are listening on our mobile apps, wherever you are in the world. Send your stories to you.
Yes. You can send your stories right through the Instagram page, through the direct message feature, and we will be in contact with you. We would love to feature stories of your interactions with Cuban doctors, of the ways in which you've spoken with Cuban doctors, received healthcare. We would love to hear it and feature any of these stories.
And one of the things we want to do is that once you've launched, to invite you both back on to talk about that and how the process is going and how we can continue to impact that and to participate. Dr. Rosemary, this to me is critical, that young people are involved at this level, and also with the foundation, Carlotta's, for example. Thank you for the information this morning. How important is it for us to foreground our warriors, our freedom fighters, even in an activism like this? How important is that?
Well, it's so important, because as elders, we have to pass on this information, because our ancestors did the same thing for us. And I think it strengthens them. And these intergenerational contacts, these intergenerational discussions are so important, because oftentimes we think that we know it all, but we have to pass this information on. And they can also critically look at what we've done in the past that did not work, so that they don't duplicate, the same struggles, the same strategies, and what have you. So I think it's really about informational sharing and the importance of that, and also to root them in the importance of study, because oftentimes our youth, sometimes they just want to go out and do things, without studying and knowing the history of those struggles. And I think that that's something that we can pass on, that with activism comes studying about struggles and strategies, what has worked, what did not work. And that's really fundamental. One last point. Here in the U.S., they're attempting to erase our history and our past through our libraries, burning books, etc. So we're in a unique situation at this point to infuse our youth with resistance. And resisting takes many forms. And one aspect of resistance is using the technology to work for us and not let the technology take over and then dictate what goes on through algorithms and through things like that. We have to infuse to our youth that you have to be independent, you have to be forced, you have to have foresight, and you have to struggle and study.
And we have just a minute to go, but for both of you to say, there's so much that we are against. But what I see these young people doing, Sahini and the team under your guidance, is to say, yes, we are against this, but we're doing something to push back against this. We're changing the narrative. This to me is critical. Talk to us about that within activism, not just to talk, but to do. How important is that?
Yes, it is. I'm happy that Dr. Rosemary has shared, right? We root both our actions now in calling for folks to recognize and debunk this disinformation, also with the historical knowledge that we're learning, and we, in our trip to Cuba, have also gotten a chance to speak with and learn about in person. But the United States, or our United States government, has also had an illegal, immoral blockade on Cuba for the last over 60 plus years. And, we see and want to situate this current attack on the Cuban Medical Brigade also as part of that larger attack on Cuban sovereignty and Cubans' commitment to socialism. And so we want to show solidarity with Cuba, with Cuban doctors, and how they have shown up in humanitarian ways across the world and provided, key healthcare and solidarity to the world in this way. And we also raise this awareness on our page of the need to both not only debunk this disinformation, but also the need to end and call for the end to the United States blockade on Cuba that's restricting their access to food, medicine, hurting and economically strangling the people of Cuba.
Just listening to this, it's reminding me of, even as a youth attending the International Youth Conference, and the call then was focused on Cuban troops. And we're talking about medical doctors, but we're talking about Cuba being so involved in liberation, African continental. We're talking about Angola, we're talking about Mozambique, so many countries. But at the same time, the narrative against Cuba seems in the West to be played out in such a way, coming through this megaphone of the Western media, especially out of the UK, Europe, and the United States, that really blurs and makes into a caricature the good work that Cuba continues to do, even in the face, Dr. Rosemary, of so many sanctions, of such an oppressive situation that Cuba still rises out of that to help others. This is phenomenal in itself, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that a country that's been under people call it sanction, we call it a blockade, because the people have to understand that there are U.S. laws that are actually extraterritorial, stretching across the world, that says a country cannot trade with Cuba, a country cannot have any kind of relationships with Cuba. I mean, there's a law, and the Helms-Burton bill, we've heard it, and our young people are learning about that also. But the fact that despite this blockade, how Cuba has been able to rise up with its technology, with its incredible ways of finding solutions. For example, during COVID, it found its own vaccines when it could not purchase vaccines on the world market, or it was unable to do that. It's found a cure for vitiligo. it's found a cure for folk who have diabetes, that people don't have to have their extremities cut off. So the thing about it is, despite all of what this country has attempted to do in the 60 plus years, it still has moved forward with innovation. And that's the other thing that the U.S. is telling your country and other countries around the Caribbean. I'll be very quick. Stop this medical brigade, right? But at the same time, what would replace it? And that's why when Sohini first came on, she talked about if there are no medical brigades, then that means death. And if the country that we live in right now is supporting outright genocide, it's also contributing to what we call legally economic genocide. And that's an attempt to starve the people, to deny the people, to disrupt their economy, to do all of those negative things. And so that's what we have to break through and let people around the world know. If there's no international medical brigades, then we will all suffer. And I think that that's an important thing. But Cuba will continue to rise above. I mean, as if you've been there, the resistance is just amazing. Despite folk leaving, there's still that foundational of humanity. So I think that's what we have to defend. That's why we have to defend this little island 90 miles away from us, because it's a beacon. It's a beacon that represents things that we want to do in our own countries that we have not been able to do.
And Sohini, the extent to which the Cuban model, the medical brigade, fits into international humanitarian medical work, and not sure if any of us are lawyers here, but I'm sure international law speaks to this. I mean, the Cuban model fits right into international humanitarian medical work, doesn't it? So it's interesting that we have this push, this narrative being spun against Cuba by the United States. It tells us a whole lot more about the ideology and the fight against what Cuba represents and what Cuba is doing in the space. Why also is July 26th important? Did we lose you? I think I might have lost my guess. Okay, no. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I know I threw two things out there. One was to say this Cuban model fits into international humanitarian work, but also to say July 26th, when this is going to be launched, that this is an important date, isn't it, in Cuba's own history?
Sohini, maybe we lost her, but yes, this will be the 72nd anniversary of when Cuba launched its revolution. It was the attack on the Moncada barracks in Santiago de Cuba. And they didn't win at that point, but they continued. By January 1st, 59, they were able to march into Havana with victory. So this is a national holiday. July 26th is a national holiday, and it's a great day to launch this project. But getting back to your other question, I am trained as a lawyer, so for me, in international law. Yes. So international law, it's about, there are aspects and there are tools in international law that talks about the survival of humanity, and people have a right to life, liberty, and happiness, and they have a right to food. Women have a right to be free, the whole gender. There are all these norms of international law that specify what should be a part of any nation, any people's rights, right? And so an attack against this medical brigade is actually a global attack against humanity, as fundamental to the laws of all the protocols of international law. And that's why every year at the UN, nations come together and they vote and they demand that the U.S. end the blockade of Cuba, right? They've done this for more than 35 years. And every year, the two countries that vote against humanity are the United States and Israel, right? Now, that's very interesting. They go against the protocols of international law when it talks about people's rights. So this issue is broader than me living in Brooklyn or you being in Kingston. It's a global issue that we have to defend. Another reason. And I think that this project is, it's small, But just listening today, and we've had an opportunity to talk to some folks and some of the other wonderful journalists in other parts of the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. We're just putting the word out, and this can grow big.
Of course, it is already big. This is massive. I think, especially with the youth involvement, I'm really buoyed by this, because this is something we've been saying. The extent to which our young people are engaged in activism, that will determine how successful we are. And so this makes a really, really big difference. As we get to July 26th and to note that anniversary, we're just making a note of it also here to remember this anniversary, Cuba's revolutionary beginnings. This campaign is contributing to a large extent to this global conversation. And we're having a global conversation on health right now, as you know, Dr. Mealy, but also about solidarity and sovereignty. It's a threat to not just to Cuba's sovereignty, but to our sovereignty, because when you have a country like the United States, Marco Rubio, for example, coming in and holding this over our heads, this is a clear threat to the sovereignty of Caribbean and African countries. It's as good a time as any to have this conversation. I'm not sure if we have Sister Sahini online. I think we lost her.
Yes, I'm back. I wasn't able to unmute. Okay.
Oh, brilliant. Good to have you back. But I know you said it before, but if you could underscore for us as a student with us today, what does this campaign mean to you personally, and how does it connect to the broader struggles for truth and justice?
Yes, definitely. You know, as young people growing up in the United States, this feels like a responsibility, right? When we think about our U.S. government that is part of contributing to this blockade, this economic strangulation of Cuba, that this U.S. government in our name and in its media pushes this disinformation. It's our job, right, to speak truth, to build solidarity, to continue to tell the truth in the face of this disinformation. And, you know, as a young person myself, growing up here, our own education systems have also been part of this disinformation. We're not shared the truth about Cuba, the truth about most of our world, and the solidarity, for example, that Cuba has even provided in the liberation of countries across Africa. You know, these are pieces of truth that I am now learning outside of our U.S. Eurocentric educational system. So, you know, our goal is to not only, you know, impact young people through our media, but also to provide, you know, key educational resources that here in our own schools, our own educational systems, we have also not had. And to show, you know, what Cuban society and the Cuban Revolution has led to, not only in providing solidarity through medical brigades globally, but also the ways in which in Cuba they're continuously resisting and being resilient in the face of this 60-plus year blockade by the United States government. So that is the responsibility that I feel as a young person here, and also as someone who has had a chance to visit Cuba and to be able to share this with my peers, with my friends, with my young community here in the United States and across the world.
Thank you so much for that, and thank you so much, Dr. Mealy. You know, as I listened to her, to Sahina speak just now, I thought to myself, you know, this is such an important work that you're doing, the process that you're leading, and the involvement of the young people, and I laughed because one of the questions that we posed when Marco Rubio was here was that when people, other countries send their help or even their troops abroad, this is termed humanitarian aid, especially when it's coming from the West. And when Cuba does it, it is termed trafficking. But so many people buy into that idea. Even here on the island, I had people calling me, did you know that our Cuban doctors are being trafficked? It seems simple, but it is critical, I think, to get that information out and to change the narrative, to push back against this butchering, if you will, of Cuba in the American media and by the American government, isn't it?
I know. I love your term butchering. You're absolutely right. You know, people don't understand that and I'll be brief, these contracts that occur between Cuba and the countries, the monies from those contracts go back to Cuba to continue to provide free health care to the people of Cuba. And also it contributes to supporting the global medical projects where thousands of our young people from around the world are studying to become doctors to go back to their nations. So it's not like the Cubans are using the contractual resources to do something else, but it's just a way in which it's the economic structure of the society is structured. This is a way in which Cuba is able to have some more economic resources from the country that's cut off by the global attacks by the U.S. government. And I think that that's an important piece of information, and that's why people need to know when Sohini first came on, everybody who joins the brigade, they volunteer. They're paid a stipend. The countries have relationships in those contracts that provide housing or whatever the contract says. And for Marco Rubio and the rest of the cabal to be traveling throughout the Caribbean and Africa and trying to bully countries to give up an important aspect of their sovereignty, it's just crass. It's illegal. It's really illegal. But they think they can do that. And last point, do you know that the latest thing is the United States through Trump has denied a visa to the president of Cuba to attend the United Nations General Assembly in September? You see how they're using this as a weapon to even deny people to come to even talk about what's going on the world stage. It's
and then it makes you wonder about other countries too, because when this happens, I'm watching what happened in the UK recently with an artist who got up on stage at, I think it was Glastonbury, and talked about the IDF and and the chants and so on, and then was blocked from other concerts. And I watched the way his people within the music fraternity and the entertainment fraternity said that if they're not coming, if this band is not coming, we're not going. We in solidarity with him. So they took that stance. I thought about that within the broader context of how countries and presidents like the Cuban president can be denied a visa to go to the UN, but then the UN goes on as if everything is okay. And you don't have other people saying that, well, if he can't come, then we're going to boycott this thing. So that there's so many who are complicit in the injustice and the oppression of so many others by not doing anything, and that is, well, let us see.
It's a lot. It's a lot, and also that's why it's been really important that some of the Caribbean countries have said, okay, if it's a visa, I won't go. Yes. And then the other tool that they use are, and this is what we're teaching the young people, it's not just the U.S. laws. They're using other tools of the U.S. to try to undermine this party. For example, the Organization of American States. They just had the audacity, a month ago, to send out a notice to all of the nation states telling them to provide them with their contracts. I mean, that's supposed to be an independent organ, right? The Organization of American States. It's going to be interesting to watch to see how many countries cave in to responding, because that's another aspect of the sovereignty.
Yeah,
and
we're watching that.
I'm so thrilled about our brothers and sisters in the Bahamas. Bahamas was the first country to stop the contracts. They want to set up these independent contracts with the doctors. They want to have slave labor repeated over again. And so these are things too that the project is really addressing. And I want to give a shout out to my brother Trevor Brown there in the Bahamas, in your country,
in Jamaica.
So key. In Jamaica, who's sending us information. Yeah. He's always sending us news clips about what's going on, how you're fighting back. So the links are really important, and you today contribute to helping us strengthen those links. Thank you.
And we really want to make contact with you, Trevor Brown, so give us a call if you can, please. Thank you so much, Dr. Rosemary Mealy. Thank you so much, Sohini. Once again, we are going to continue this conversation, but also to ensure that our young people and not so young people please get on Instagram, sign up, follow the Instagram page, which is already up. It is called Lotus Warriors. And send your stories. I know quite a few stories on the island, so I'm sure that people are already poised to send in their stories. Thank you so much. Please come back after July 26th so we can have an update on how this is going.
We will. And join us in Havana in December 25th to January 1st.
Let's talk about that for a minute, quickly, just as our listeners know. Let's talk about it, because there is a trip, if you will, that's going into Havana. Tell us about that quickly.
Well, I can't talk about it publicly over the air, but I think that if people want to go to Cuba for that time, it's important, because the main Cuban organization is called the Cuban Institute for Friendship with the People. They're celebrating their 65th anniversary. So people from all over the world are going to be coming to Havana December 25th to January the 1st. So I would encourage our folk in Jamaica to organize delegations of young people to come and celebrate ECAP's anniversary. That would be a great way that we, again, because you can go there freer, quote unquote, than we can.
Yeah, brilliant. So we're on top of that. Thank you so much, Dr. Rosemary. Okay. Thank you so much, Sahidi. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Have a beautiful day, too. Party is still far from finalizing rules for extracting metals on the high seas, despite heightened pressure triggered by U.S. efforts to fast-track the controversial practice. Headlines in The Observer says, new deep-sea mining rules lack consensus despite U.S. pressure. So it says, following a meeting in March and the current session in Jamaica, the 36 members of the ISA's Executive Council completed on Thursday a line-by-line reading of the proposed mining code and its 107 regulations for exploitation of the ocean floor in international waters. The minerals and metals in question, such as cobalt, nickel, and manganese, are used for electric vehicles and other emerging technologies. Right now is my colleague. He's a Pan-Africanist, he's a historian, he is a broadcaster, and he's joined me in studio to take us through the next segment of our program into just about 10 o'clock. Jerry Small needs no introduction. I'm live in the studio. Jerry, good morning.
Morning, Kabu. Morning. And morning to your listeners, and thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you for coming in. I know the road was slippery out there this morning.
Tell you.
But I'm glad you're here. And just in time, too, because we had some fillers. So good that you're live in the studio. Jerry, we're looking at what we're calling wounds of a nation. The wounds of a nation. The nation, of course, being Jamaica. How the CIA, political groups, and the 1980s violence shaped the Jamaica that we live in today, the Jamaica that we inherited. And I think for a lot of us, we were children growing up through, like if you're Gen X, your children growing up through that whole period of the 1980s. Our understanding of it is wrapped up in fear. I can tell you that. F-E-A-R, fear. We grew up afraid for us who were growing up through that period. And it kind of got me thinking about how all of that period actually shaped where we are now. When we're talking about the 1980s, 1976 into the 1980s, mid-1980s, we tend to reference this as a time of political foment. They say it is the most violent time in Jamaican history outside of slavery, the bloodiest time. How you see it?
It wasn't the bloodiest time. It was one of the high. It was one of the high. You know, you have high points in events and in consciousness. Sometimes the consciousness doesn't see it, and next time the consciousness of the general consciousness of the people see it. Now, 1975, just before Bob Marley make it big, it was that year, 75 going into 76, him really make it big. And his biggest hit of that time, two significant music he put out. He put out Jah Live when the information was put out that Haile Selassie is dead. murdered by a revolutionary, by a coup, a military coup in Ethiopia. Now, Bamali put out Jaliv to kind of strengthen himself and strengthen other Rastafari and other people that we will not be follow the news and take it at the face value. But another big music he put out that year was Rat Race. And that's the first time he make a political commentary in a certain sharp way. When him say, you have all kind of race are going, but this is a rat race. And him say, don't mix up Rasta in your sessy. Rasta no work for no CIA. Now in that same year now, the government of Jamaica, the PNP government of Jamaica, the year before had declared itself renewed socialism after them abandoned socialism in 1952. Them abandoned socialism, but them announced back 1974 that they're taking up socialism again. And in that time now, the next party, JLP, was being led by Shearer, who was seen to be soft. And also a good friend of Michael Manley. So therefore, Shearer was not willing to carry the tribal war in the way that it was wanted by certain other people. So Siaga was put to challenge Shearer and take away the Jamaica Labour Party from Shearer. And that's when the real conflict really stepped up there now. So the next year, 75 now, the PNP government announced that they're going to have some special program to train people. But them announced it as training in nation building. So one of the program named Pioneer Corps, people who are going to pioneer certain kind of activities in communities and in daily life, especially through agriculture and security. Ordinary people are going to help in the community security to keep down crime, home guard and
yes.
that kind of thing. All different kind of pioneers. Pioneering employment by putting city youth and other youth into agriculture. Pioneering all different kind of activity, new activity.
Yes.
Even farms, they were going to hand over cooperative farms, you know. Farms that is controlled by all of the people who working together, cooperative farm, pioneer farm. And they got a lot of these ideas from Tanzania, Julius Nyerere, and others. But the nearest neighbor was Cuba, and Cuba was also up into that. So the government announced that I'm going to send people into these pioneer things. But inside of the pioneer, the same pioneer program was also accompanied by a brigadista program where supporters of the actual political government, the PNP party, and other leftist groups were sent but not publicized to be disciplined and multi-talented, including military ability. So a little step up from the home guard. Home guard is to keep security, like, you know. But the brigadista was more skills, more military skills, more security skills, including intelligence. I'm going to get a break there because you might want to say something.
No, go ahead. We don't want to say nothing.
Yes.
No,
so as you know, from ancient time, not just now, intelligence is one of the most pivotal and crucial parts of politics and government and empire. So if you want to control, and also if you want to get out of from underneath people control, but the controller need intelligence, and people like we who want to get from out of underneath the control of other people want intelligence. Intelligence not only meaning the sense that you have in your head. Intelligence means information and facts and a sense of time and appropriateness. Intelligence, what people call, normally people think of as spy work or knowing what your competitor is doing.
They tend to phrase it gathering intelligence.
Gathering intelligence. Intelligence is knowledge and information, especially knowledge and information of your competitor. I don't know if you know how Kishane, the brilliant new Jamaican runner, was given second place at the Olympics last year.
What do you mean, how?
His main competitor, the United States, want to overcome the dominance of the Jamaican over the last 20 years in track and field, male and female. And one of the United States runners who is up and coming to be world leader in sprinting, he got involved with a Jamaican girlfriend who is also a track and field athlete, and he used her to gather intelligence about...
Why do you... we have to... No, do not say that, Jerry, and we're going to have to do...
apology. Well, I apologize. No, the fact is this.
So we do not know that he used her to gather
the fact is this.
Right, yeah.
There was a campaign of giving out information, saying that everything is not going right amongst the Jamaicans and in the camp and so on. And then on the final day, Kishane as a new person, not having as much experience, on the final day, they were, as usual, trying to unnerve him like how they unnerved Asafa Powell in 2004. Many people don't remember. Asafa Powell was a favorite, but a brand new person. And they unnerved him by acting out a whole heap of things on the field, and he kind of lost his concentration. Now, the Olympic first and second place and third place is supposed to be decided by hundredths of a second. Not tenths of a second. Not 9.1, but 9.1 on the next figure. Anything further, any nearness in terms of thousands must be disregarded as long as the two runners are the same hundredth of a second timing. They must be given equal place. You remember when Shelly Ann won and two Jamaicans came second instead of coming second and third because they had the same time up to hundreds.
Right.
Now it was manipulated at the Olympics because big powers also have big authority in sports and all kind of different fields, money and entertainment. And the first place was taken from Kishane because the other guy was perceived to have 4,000th of a second different time from him. It was not supposed...
Yes.
Yes,
I remember that. So you're saying...
So intelligence is used in all form of competition, warfare, and enmity.
And so you're saying the Brigadista program was also not just for physical training, physical military training, but also training in gathering intelligence.
Yes, and also the other side of intelligence is propaganda.
All right, so you're connecting all of this. This is what was done under the Michael Manley regime we're looking at the 70s now, including the Home Guard, all the socialist programs that we're putting and so on, including the Brigadista program. I know the reporting around the time surrounding the Brigadista program in particular was that these were... And interesting, Jerry, let me just do a quick segue, because we had in studio somebody that you've spoken to since, a brother who spent 45 years in prison. And he talked about when he was, it's a mistaken identity, and but he was convicted of the crime, spent 45 years pleading his innocence and so on, and still, the entire time. But one of the things he said is that he, during the time, was accused of being part of, if you will, an intelligentsia that was feeding back into that same foment that was on the ground here in Jamaica, which is what they said now the brigadistas were being trained for, which was to fight against the opposition, if you will. So it was a kind of a civil war situation.
Yes. No. They weren't simply being... They were... Yes. The thing is this. The election of 1980 was 5 years coming up when they started sending people to Cuba to train. But when they started sending them to Cuba to train, it was more Pioneer Corps and Home Guard. But after that, the Brigadista program was added, and some of the people were, matter of fact, all of them were under the General Brigadista thing. But some of the Brigadista was mostly people who had personal links with the party, either the PNP, the WPJ, which is the next communist group that was led by Trevor Monroe, most led by university people, but a lot of street and ghetto youth were in it, and also the Communist Party of Jamaica. So this is three leftist groups, mainly led by the PNP, and is people attached to these political groups and loyal to them, who were the main brigadistas. Now, the Pioneer Corps could be anyone in the communities, sympathetic but not that active in the parties and the groups.
Yeah.
Now,
hold that thought. Just write it down. Let me just take a quick break. Oops. And the 1980s violence shaped the Jamaica we inherited today. Just laying the groundwork, the foundational in terms of information, the foundation. Jerry Small is the best person we know who's able to do that, and he's in studio with me this morning, helping us to understand what was happening politically and socially at the time in Jamaica. And it's not just the 1980s, Jerry, because we're talking about that from 76 up to 1985. 85.
Is a key when you carried past the 83 and 85. I soon.
Yes. All right. So all of that you mentioned, how did that reflect back on Jamaica? I mean, what were people thinking, and how was that viewed? All of that, the Home Guard, the social programs, the brigadistas, all of it.
Now, shortly after the sending of people to Cuba to train was announced, there started to step up. Even though the election wasn't due until 76, well, they started to step up from the previous year. A lot of discovery or announcement of its discovery by the government that the opposition was organizing people also higher training than the usual gunman, and organizing people to fight and organizing some of their GLP officers to lead an insurrection. So gradually, this information was being put out by the government, the PNP. Meanwhile, the JLP is also putting out information. So they're sending people to Cuba to train, to capture Jamaica, and don't depend on election victory to continue in government, but to depend on capturing Jamaica by training people and putting them into the police force and into the army, sneaking them in. Now, the next year's election coming up.
What year are we looking at there?
1976. A state of emergency was declared, and opposition people and other people started being arrested and put in detention. Even people like Babsy Grange, Pernell Charles, and many others.
Pernell Charles has an entire book.
Yes.
On that, so we can just so you know, read that book.
Yes, he has more than one, but one is published, detained, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the 76 election is coming up. Now, there has been a tradition, there has been a pattern set from before, and this pattern was established with the help of England and America. England, you see, like how America's world empire is starting to topple, start to shake.
Yes.
And signs of toppling. So
the veneer is falling.
Yes. So it is that before the First World War, England Empire showed the signs of toppling, and the biggest English colony was now 150 years old, America, and it was obvious that is America. Is the offspring of England is now the richest country in the world, and England and America start to negotiate to pass over the empire from England to America. These things have happened. Is not willing, but is next to the worst thing. So anyway, it is understood that the Caribbean, the neighborhood of America, the nearest neighborhood of America, next to South America, and next to Mexico, which is a part of North America, the neighborhood of the Caribbean, the English-speaking Caribbean, is one of the first places where the arrangement and the gradual transfer from England control to American control. Now, so by the 1930s, Marcus Garvey is giving trouble in Jamaica. He has been deported from England, from America, and he's back in Jamaica. He's giving trouble like he looked like he could take Jamaica from England. And they put him in prison twice, but he's still giving trouble in the early 30s. And the British are looking for somebody to counteract Marcus Garvey. And they start to look among their subjects in Jamaica. You know, in every location, every local place, you have people who are the elite there who serve the foreign power. Sometimes they are related to the foreign power and they have the foreign power blood.
Right.
Norman Manley was little more than half European, but distinctly black. Bustamante was almost completely European, and many other local elite like them who love Britain. Britain was scouting around to find a way to get Marcus Garvey out of any contention like he wanted to come take over Jamaica. Both Manley and Bustamante were identified in those same 30. Do you want to say something?
No, because I see where you're going.
Yeah.
I know you've gone back to the 30s, but I think it's important to kind of look at what happened.
So anyway, a pattern was established.
Yeah.
A pattern was established after they identified Manley, Bustamante, and some more elite as being loyal people who, if they hand over local government to them, they will keep them with Britain. They hand it over to them, and they split them into two parts. You know that the imperialists, they control by divided. They divide Norman Manley and Bustamante, split them into two parties. And then they gave 2 terms. They gave the Bustamante party 2 terms, and they established a pattern in Jamaica. You get 2 terms and then you're out of office. And then your rival get 2 terms, then out of office. Then you come back and you get 2 terms from 62 and 67 JLP out of office. Then you're looking now, if the PNP come in 72, and you expect them by 76, the second election, they will be out of office after that. That's why 1980 was so crucial. The PNP is trying to break the cycle of 2 terms in office and out.
Yes.
The PNP is trying to win a 3rd election, and the JLP see themselves in danger, not winning not breaking the cycle, and PNP go and get to and get.
Would
that
that have been the first time that we had that situation where the 3rd term was being considered?
No, well,
Going for the 3rd term?
But well, Norman Manley was hoping to lead the PNP to a 3rd term in 62.
But
the people of Jamaica voted against the continuing of the federation, so PNP was out.
So we see this within in the 70s 76 election.
Yeah.
That pattern, that model of going all out for the 3rd term.
No, the 76 will be the 2nd term, so that is expected.
2nd term, so you talk about 80 now.
It's expected, but they
Right.
start to plan for the 3rd term already, you know.
So we see.
To break the cycle, that is what happened now.
Okay.
And the JLP is also threatening that they're not going to be able to break the cycle after the 2nd term of the PNP.
And we've seen that, just to fast forward a bit, we're going to come back. We've seen that quite a few times since then, right?
Since then.
With PJ, we see
Yes,
that.
yes. PJ is the one who broke the cycle.
Right, and
But
there's a hope to continue PJ.
Now the situation, and it's very opportune how you brought up this thing and compared to today. Because the JLP is not only desperate, but is most confident that this time they're going to break the cycle and get a 3rd term this year.
Yes.
And that is why it is very appropriate what you are doing.
To what extent does 1980, this confidence that the PNP had or the hope that they had to break that cycle resembles what we are in right now? To what extent is it mirroring this time? Not necessarily PJ time, but this time.
Yes. Well, no. After 1976, from even before 76, the plan did start to break the cycle after finishing the 76th term, which would end in 1980. Michael Manley was advised by the top intellectual out of Jamaica, who is an anthropologist just like Siaga, M.G. Smith, who studied the Rastafari movement, M.G. Smith, who pointed out to Britain that the Rastafari movement is the biggest danger to overthrow the British government. I'm telling you now. M.G. Smith gave that warning to Britain. He was an intelligence officer. He was a Jamaican intelligence officer for Britain from in the World War. My Bustamante also wrote after the coronation of Haile Selassie and the Rasta movement spring up in Jamaica. Bustamante wrote the British government and said this new Rasta movement is the biggest danger to Britain. And Marcus Garvey also wrote the British government. Marcus Garvey I deal with black people thing, you know. When he saw that the Rastafari movement, it kind of overshadowed his Garvey movement, or threatened to do it in a few years. Marcus Garvey secretly wrote the British government and warned him about the Rasta movement. So this is a whole warning.
Yeah, it's a conflict that I know that, at some point, it has been, I think, Rastafari come to some, agreement on how to deal with all of that, it would appear.
Yes.
But it comes up from time to time, and,
yes.
and it remains a conflict,
yes.
a contention at least.
Yes, and in turn, these local program of socialism in Jamaica, 2 terms will not be able to do it. 10 years cannot do it. You need 15 years. You need to win a 3rd term. And he advised him that the best way to win a 3rd term is to set up a garrison, a physical garrison like Tivoli for yourself, Michael Manley. Michael Manley didn't have a Tivoli garrison. You know. Seaga's strength is that he built a citadel, a residential castle, a residential army headquarters at Tivoli. And that was his strength, why he must be elected every time. Now, Michael Manley didn't have any big garrison like Tivoli in his constituency. And Tony Spalding did have one. And Tony Spalding now was a general for the PNP. You know. Tony Spalding even used to disrespect Michael Manley sometimes because them know that it's him them have to rely on for the soldiers in a big PNP fight.
And by the soldiers, you mean those who...
Armed and skillful warriors and gunmen and fighters. And therefore him control the bad man them for the PNP, and through that him can be rude to him, Michael Manley, and challenge him leadership. MG Smith make Michael Manley know that you have to build a garrison for yourself inside of your constituency, a huge garrison like Tivoli or Concrete Jungle, otherwise you will not be able to continue lead the PNP and you will not be able to win the 3rd term. So they started to build a garrison down South Camp Road, and when they start building the garrison, a lot of man down that era was a JLP, very strong in JLP, although it in a Michael Manley constituency. A lot of young man and unemployed man went on the building site and demand that they must get work. So MG Smith contrive a plan now. All right, them want work, and enough of them is labor right, and enough of them is not PNP. We go and give them work. I will go and tell them say the work going to be security work. I will go and train them for fire gun and give a big gun. They are going to come in. And when you get them now, we're going to carry them in an army shooting range and kill off the whole of them and tell people say it's JLP was training them.
So, and that happened?
That happened in 5th of January 1978, 1 year and 1 month after the 76 election where them shot Bob Marley.
Mm-hmm.
It happened. And when the news come out, them announce say we surprised someone at Green Bay training to overthrow the government as labor to train them. Meanwhile, it was them.
No angels were at Green Bay.
Yes. So now the JLP was at True Seaga was also always setting up things and says the PNP doing it now. So here's the PNP now, so them going to set up something and says the JLP do it. So it was a big embarrassment to Michael Manley and the PNP.
There was such a commitment to violence, yes, right, during that entire period, by people who were trustees, or people who were supposed to be...
trustworthy.
And trustworthy also. To what extent was there... what was the CIA's involvement, this outside involvement or foreign involvement on both sides or either way?
Both sides.
Right. To what extent was foreign involvement part of the fomenting of this violence? And to what extent do we know whether... foreign involvement also fund in terms of providing weapons to some of these gunmen, if you will, or some of these communities?
Now, the Cold War is when Russia and America and England and France, they joined up together and fight against Germany. But although Russia and America and England joined together, Russia is the biggest danger to England and America, because Russia is introducing communism in the world, and England and America is the capital of capitalism in the world. So that they know that although them join up with Russia to fight Germany, when the war done, Russia is going to be penetrating England and America with communism. So as the war done, them start a secret war without fire gun, sabotage and secret warfare and undermining and propaganda.
Cold War. Is Jerry Small, Bongo Jerry. So many persons are writing in to say, heal up Bongo. So I must remember to say Bongo Jerry.
Yes, ma'am.
Jerry, this is interesting information, and I think history is important. History is literally a signpost, you know, and this is not far history. We're talking about just a few years ago. In terms of the 70s. And you're telling, by the way, if you're just joining us, Wounds of a Nation, how the CIA, political groups of the 1980s violence, 1976 to 85, shaped and impacted the situation that we're in now. What have we inherited is a question that we're asking. What have we become, and what are we becoming as a result of what happened in that period? Because even though Jamaica has been it was built on violence in terms of what happened to the Tainos and later on that whole period of slavery, that we continue even after independence to perpetrate that violence against each other and allowing foreign interference to the extent that the 1970s saw the CIA coming down. Their own records showing that. What can you tell us about that? Because you started talking about that on both sides there was foreign interference, but that the violence was funded and deliberately and equipped.
High technical weapon, high powered weapon, limitless amount of ammunition. All right.
I saw a Gleaner article that spoke to it was during this period that for the first time the headline was interesting, and the first paragraph was the AK-47 showed up for the first time. This is the first time that we can think of the AK-47 showing up.
And although the AK-47 is much older than the M16, it is tough and durable and can go through far more hardship than more modern weapons. And it can be found all over the world. You can buy the ammunition almost at a gas station,
These weapons were funded by who?
No, these weapons originally made invented by a Russian, but they are built all over the world. And both parties, both the West and the East, supply insurrectionists with these weapons. But
and so within Jamaica, they were being supplied by who?
Both sides will. When I'm buying arms and supplying arms, they supply it from anywhere. Not only that, as you mentioned earlier with the ladies there, they also use the drug trade as a transportation system. Drug trade is financing some of the movement, and drug trade is the same plane that carry the drugs, the same plane that carry the arms. You know that as transportation system, you make the most money when you have a full load both ways, from here to Ochi, or from Ochi to here. So
the guns were coming in and the drugs going out?
The drugs going out and some of the drug money being used to finance back the same guns and finance other things.
Obviously, we tend to say ordinary Jamaican sometimes, but the ordinary Jamaican, the masses of people couldn't afford this.
Can't afford, no. They, even up to now, they can't, the ordinary youth out there can't afford these things. There's a bigger network and bigger bosses. Even the ganja business with them legalizing now. America made sure get on top of the ganja business and legalize it in America. Because it is already a big business and it's going to be bigger. Anyway, long story short is this. In the 1970s, these foreign intelligence agencies, they not only infiltrated the JLP and the money people, they infiltrated the PNP too. Because a big section of the PNP never liked the socialism thing. Remember, the PNP have a wing that did resist that, Remember, people like Wills Isaacs and them all time, and Glasspool. And even PJ Patterson wasn't a leftist, PJ Patterson was one of the conservative, but him still maintain good relation with both sides.
So within the PNP itself, there was dissent.
Not only dissent, but infiltration by these intelligence agencies, and they have their agents inside the PNP, not only in the JLP.
And what was the result of that?
All right, I carried one little inch wider for show you what can be the result. First thing, the PNP party kind of split from that time. That's why Manley got out Glasspool out of the government and gave him King's House, gave him Governor General for get him out, because he was the biggest troublemaker. Now they are also infiltrating the Rastafari movement, just like how they infiltrated the Garvey movement. They infiltrated the Garvey movement, That's why Garvey was blocked out.
Of course, yes.
And then now they infiltrate the Rastafari movement. From as far back as Claudius Henry time, them infiltrating the Garvey movement, and some of the leftists making links with some of the Rastafari, especially people like Claudius Henry and others, although it was not a firm organization. Now, the other thing is this. Bob Marley make it big between 75 and 76. And coming back into Jamaica one time after a tour, arms and ammunition is found amongst Bob Marley thing. And him is having difficulty getting visa for some man. And certain Rastafarian who has been infiltrated start to get visa for Bob Marley musician them. So them become very much more valuable to Bob Marley. Bob Marley still having visa, you know. But some man them, because the luggage, where them travel with any instrument, you find gun in there, or you find 2 bullets and thing. Yeah, them nobody penalize Bob Marley, but them start penalize some, make it difficult to get. So anyway, certain Rastafari will get. And I saw personally and detected the infiltration of CIA agents, CIA and Israelis into the Rastafari movement, into certain organizations.
You saw that? You witnessed that?
Yes.
How did it present without calling names?
First thing, certain Rastafari organization spread international. And certain Israeli start to join the organization in New York. And certain Israeli come to Jamaica to visit the organization in Jamaica. And certain Israeli, we are going on a country trip. We start go country trip, 1976, I believe, or 77. We go on a country trip, driving around the island, every month a different place. And certain Israeli says she's going to bring her boyfriend. When you check a stock, her boyfriend work with the U.S. Embassy. But it's not just U.S., it's not just diplomatic work, do. He is the one who is providing the visas. And he is a secondary officer in the CIA detail in Jamaica.
The CIA itself, over time, and these are documents you can find anywhere now. It's very easy to find because they have, so much is now open, so much has been released in terms of the CIA activities on the island during that period. So they themselves haven't shied away from this. And them tell you how the campaign, the media campaign, the infiltration of organizations, one of the things that I think might be in a little contention, but WikiLeaks had leaked that out, the arming of entire communities. In other words, there's also, I know that some of the things we really can't say on the air, Jerry, but there's a whole lot that is known in terms of the extent to which communities and dons who became larger than life were armed by the CIA on behalf of political parties to wreak havoc on this nation 76 to 80.
In 1977.
So that radicalism within Rastafari was also curated, if you will.
They are infiltrating these organizations. They will do so. They infiltrate the organization.
So, how was this playing out on the ground? What was happening on the ground? How was this
all right, I'll tell you. Who when Bob Marley was shot in 1976, what was the occasion?
Was when he came for the peace concert?
No.
When
people mix up the peace concert with the Smile Jamaica. It's 2 concerts.
Oh.
Smile Jamaica concert is a concert that Bob Marley.
True. Yes.
Just after make it busting big in 1976, Bob Marley said he wanted to keep some concert for the people of Jamaica to show his appreciation.
Is that one who was shot in the hand? That was the one.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Mm-hmm.
No, he wasn't. He's escaping. Them never planned to shoot him, man.
Right,
Them come to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
So
but he said at the time he knew who.
All right, yes. So now a lot of within these organizations, you have people of both persuasion. You have Rastafari who support PNP. You have Rastafari who support JLP, but not so much JLP. Most Rasta who have any little political leanings from in the 1950s usually lean more towards the PNP. It is more of a people's organization. Now some people know it as 12 Tribe. Marley want to keep a concert and the infrastructure and the security. He will provide the music and so on. Well, Michael Manley, under the suggestion of some of them, want to put, because general election is coming up 5 days after the concert, So they want to make it look like Bob Marley a campaign for PNP. Somehow we want Bob Marley, so they might try winding up say a campaign. Because Bob Marley did campaign for PNP in 72, The Whalers and Delroy Wilson and plenty more of them did campaign for PNP in 72. So them say a campaign for PNP again. Michael Manley tell Bob Marley, say, all right, I could keep it at Jamaica House. There's a trap that's enough to keep that Jamaica House. Yeah. So we want Bob Marley not keep it anyway. Siag and the JLP here same time, same I go sing Smile Jamaica and it looked like him a campaign for PNP. Siaga and the JLP send call tell him, say, don't do it. And him tell Siaga, say, this is not political. Siaga will send back 2 more times, I want him, don't do it. And after him look like him determined to do it, them send I want him, say, we're not responsive if anything happen, you know. And they did send man go, they go shoot him.
All right, so you're saying the JLP was responsible for...
Yes. The JLP, no. Most organizations don't know what the leadership do, you know. Just like how that organization, that Rastafari organization, never know what the leader do or work with outside, you know. Most church don't know what pastor do, you know. So most people are innocent. Membership of organizations around the world are sincere and innocent. So don't know what their leadership is doing.
You're right on that. So the point is, and I heard Bob Marley in an interview, intimating, and he said, he was asked, who shot you? And he said, do you know who shot you? And he said, well, I know who shot me. It's out there. I mean, people can go and watch that. There was a whole conversation around it as to who might have, at least if not fired the gun himself, who might have ordered that. But the situation at the time was as such that you're saying leaders, because you talk about Spalding just now, who was big in the PNP. You talk about the forming of Tivoli Gardens, the garrisons that were built. And so the garrisons were built for what purpose at the end of the day? What was the purpose of the garrison? The garrison
is a military headquarters for the party. And you run out all people, as far as you know, so them is not supporting your side. You run them out of the area before the house them done build, and you populate that area with your people alone. That means you must win. Everybody go and vote for you there.
And by military headquarters, I mean not legally military, not part of the
national military. It's your party military headquarters or your personal constituency military headquarters.
It's a mafia business.
Yes. Underground arm. And before there was the first physical geographical garrison. The first garrison of the PNP was Bustamante and the BITU. Bustamante was in the PNP now. And him provide the bad man for PNP. So when him leave the PNP now have no bad man again. You know. He's now leading the bad man of his bad man against the PNP. So that's a new building. Most of the PNP supporters downtown who live near to the waterfront was in Matthews Lane. And that's why Matthews Lane, Group 69, because you have different, PNP always have different group name and numbers. Group 69 in Matthews Lane was the first military arm of the PNP. But later on, is when Concrete Jungle built them up them first geographical garrison.
So was it was in that period, 1976 to 85, that we had the, not just political tribalism, but political tribalism supported by the creation...
By international intrigue and intelligence and military support.
And violence. Yes. So they talk about transnational organized crime.
Yes, and remember revolution took place the year before a kind of Bustamante type government in Grenada, 1979, and 1980 is getting stronger and stronger. And Bishop, who is the leader of that revolution, was almost like a clone of Michael Manley. Michael Manley was a mentor, and he even start talk and dress like Michael Manley, very similar figures and popular figures. And then now the same CIA and the KGB, the intelligence of both Russia, Cuba, and America is inside the Grenada, also in there showing this unity amongst the same Grenada revolution. At the same time, the leaders themselves are rivals. Because remember, say in every alliance, you usually have some rivalry, and if somebody outside is able to stir it the right way, they can get the rivalry get toxic.
And that resulted in a bloody coup.
Yeah.
So we have half an hour when we come back, and I want to look at Jerry just how, because here we are at another Cold War situation, at the end of another empire.
And a government now that is determined to break the two-term cycle. Right. And to equal the 18-year regime of the PNP.
Let's go for a break. Let's go for a break. Now, even though I need you to come back and we do 4 hours of this, just to pull it together to say how the times are similar. All of the environmental factors, the social factors, the political factors, and plus this whole global perspective, which we find ourselves in very same situation of an empire falling and a Cold War. pull that together for us and say how it resembles this and how it is defining where we are now.
All right. The Jamaica and Cuba are just 90 miles apart, very near. And Jamaica and Cuba was at the apex, the center, at the climax of the Cold War, when the Cold War was about to come to an end. Jamaica and Cuba was right in the center where the thing is getting the hottest, because as two small states, at the same time, they were very influential amongst the rest of the states that both sides are competing for. Now, when you look on the situation now in a Israel, so-called Israel and Gaza, you see how over the last 5 years, especially since the COVID, the whole world scene, people are understanding, especially through the use of social media. People relying, I already mentioned it earlier, people relying more on social media now, even more than the traditional media.
Yes.
Even though a lot of false information is going
on
out
both.
in it. But on
The
both.
legacy media is more false than almost anything right now.
Yes, program.
That's a propaganda.
More
Straight
program.
propaganda and bad propaganda.
Yes.
Yes.
But the whole world now realizes what the whole Israeli and Zionist movement was about. And not no people, them is not no people of Israel. This is people who claim, who are impersonating some people in order to claim some land, and they had the full backing of England and America who set them up. It was England who secured that land and gave to them, and America has had them. You know, say, in my last few weeks on the year, I came off of the year last year, August. I made a decision to come off of the year. In the last few months, couple months, in order to try to make people understand what is the standing of Israel and why Israel is so pivotal with America. I tried to use some terms just to try to make people understand. And it came to one day to use the term, Israel is the 51st state of the United States of America.
That's exactly it, yes.
And do you know, I said that thing about 3 times in the program in 2 weeks. And the week after that, I hear an Israeli cabinet minister make the same statement of frightened. Israel is the 51st state of the United States.
Yes.
And 2 weeks later, I hear 2 State Department officials of America say that Israel is the 51st state of America.
It is a satellite state, and the bottom line with that is that it also controls through compromat, through Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and our Pupa before she. There's so much compromat on the senators and the high-level politicians that it is even more powerful in terms of its ability to guide global issues than the President of the United States. And that is the bottom line.
So people now realize that there's an autocracy and a ruling class above political parties and above heads of state.
Yes. So you're making the point on Israel to say, so during the Cold War we had Cuba and Jamaica being central because of where we're situated anyway, but also that the connection between Cuba and Russia, and that was an ongoing Cold War. Where does you foreground Israel? Where does China fall in all of this? Because obviously this war for control of the new world economic order is really between America and China and how people line up behind them. Yeah. But China is very present in Jamaica.
Yes.
So China being this present in Jamaica, to what extent is it as similar, do you think, to Russia being that present in Cuba and within the region and the ongoing Cold War?
There's a couple differences. Now the PNP of today is not ideologically driven. The PNP of today, hardly have an ideology. The PNP of today hardly have an ideology.
What do you say hardly?
The PNP of today...
The PNP of today does not have an ideology.
Pardon me?
It doesn't have an ideology.
No, and because of that, it resembles the JLP very much, and that's why you see so much backing and forth in. You remember when Samud and many people was going over to the PNP and coming back? You see how many people defect from the PNP to the JLP recently?
Yeah.
I have people even defect from the JLP to the PNP.
Yeah.
Because they are...
Yes. Do you think this is my thinking, and you can tell me how you feel about it, the JLP, through the leadership of the JLP, has hijacked the PNP's ideology, and while not living it because it is capitalist 2.0, is articulating it but doing something quite different. And is articulating it better than the PNP.
And that's why the populism and that kind of thing. Wholeness trying to ingratiate in personality.
The social housing project, etc.
No, at the same time, I can show you 3 different ventures where this JLP government administration is so willing to serve that imperial force. In Haiti, is JLP, the Jamaica government and military spearheading the subduing of Haiti for America. The Jamaica Labour Party government and the Jamaica government have agreement with the Israeli them that to be an agent of the Israeli in this part of the world and in the United Nations corridors, and the intelligence and all of the ID system that Israel use for the NIDS program and all them things there.
Pegasus and the rest of it, all of it.
And also now,
but Israel is very present on the ground.
You remember Kamina Johnson running to be Secretary General of the Commonwealth?
Yes.
What was that about?
Tell me.
Why was she so determined to run? The person who was Secretary General of the Commonwealth is a prominent West Indian woman who grew up in England.
Yes.
Baroness Scotland. And she is Secretary General of the Commonwealth.
For reparations.
And the system in the Commonwealth is, these are so-called ex-colonies of Britain that still join with Britain to be a political and economic bloc in the world.
Yeah.
And the agreement is that every region, like the British region, the Caribbean, Africa, each Secretary General in succession must come from a different region. They don't try to compete. So so right now, and each Secretary General served for 2 terms. Baroness Scotland did serve for 1 term. She's not supposed to be a challenge,
No.
And it was agreed that the next person who succeed her must come from the African nation.
Continent.
And yet here is Jamaica minister. Ordered by Hollis to run against Baroness Scotland.
Ordered by Boris Johnson.
Yes, because Boris Johnson organized and give them money and finance them to unseat Baroness Scotland. Why? Baroness Scotland was organizing to bring Boris Johnson to trial for many crimes like how Trump had been convicted of 34 crimes.
Hold the point, I come right back. Yes, so what you're pointing out to me, Jerry, is that the current Hollis administration is so deeply in bed with Western imperialism.
And they're not just in bed; they are underneath. They are on the bed. They are not on top. They are giving service.
Yes.
They are willing to give service, and they care not. They don't care.
To Western imperialism.
Yes.
To capitalism.
To prolong.
Yes.
Imperialism that is tottering,
Yes.
and collapsing.
Yes.
It could last 40 years more, but it can don't last 10 years either. But it is tottering.
Yes.
What they're willing to serve so many times, and money is involved. It's not just that they're doing it because they believe it's right, Remember, say she did get about 100 million to spend. Don't she get about?
It's quite a bit.
Where she get what?
Yeah. So how does this relate back to the JLP administration, or the JLP now, in a situation where they are going headlong for a 3rd term, and also the statistics that they are churning out at us now to say that, one, there's a reduction in crime. We see a splintering in crime.
Yes.
So we see places like Richmond in St. Mary, Three Hills in St. Anne, Essex in St. Mary. We're hearing about places where we never had.
Never.
So we see a push in the way we see that the push from downtown Kingston in Montego Bay and Westmoreland. Now we're seeing crime being pushed into the deep rural communities. But the statistics they're churning out at us is that there's a reduction in murder, reduction in crime, etc., and you're going for the 3rd term. How does this correlate, do you think, to the 80s, where we see that even though it's not outrightly political bloody, but we see that there was organized crime. You talk about the drug trade. Do you think now it is more coordinated, more organized, and so it is looking a little bit different, but it is still there? It never went away.
We don't have to construct no conspiracy theory, Whatever will work by itself is allowed. All of them don't have to be in one organization, central organization. They allow things as long as they will get some contribution from it. So gangster and even the private sector and the super rich people in Jamaica, they all contribute to both parties, but they contribute to the one that they favor more. So just like how the super rich and the big business people and big families contribute to the parties, so it is gangster upon a whole. Support gangsterism and support gangster and no loyalty, Gangster and no have no ideological loyalty, no PNP and JLP, So they don't have to organize them. They know that if you want to continue, we need to hear from you, send nothing come give you, if we need a favor done, we can come ask if we do a favor. And you can ask even the so-called enemy troops to do a favor because they're not really loyal to them party neither. Anything will go.
Yeah.
And the other difference now is that China, as you know, it is China that is waiting in the wings to take control of the crumbling empire capability. Now, that don't mean that we, the people of Jamaica, must be glad to see no China, to facilitate no China empire in the world. Because remember, although this nation make out of all different kind of people, we are predominantly African who are owed. We, the African population in Jamaica, we are not just ordinary like the rest of the other people. We are owed everything. We already pay for the entire land of Jamaica with our sweat and blood. And them owe before them rob we Africa.
True.
And China don't have no, just like America don't have no friends. America don't have friends, America have interests. Don't bother believe like that China have no friend more than so with me and you as black people in Africa.
China is a rising empire.
Yes,
and it is doing what empires do.
And them tie up a quarter Africa already.
Yes, exactly. I have so many questions coming in from our listeners for me to ask you, Jerry, and some of them fit right into what we're talking about. This one says, if you get a moment, please ask Jerry to put in context this current sentiment of the PNP, the blood and fire PNP. And he talks about his memory and how frightening the political climate of the 70s was and how it is used today, because that has come up again, right? We hear that in the public sphere now. I think there is an ongoing conversation or costing, if you will, between the two parties because it was used recently.
The blood and fire PNP, you're talking about the words that them singing a song?
Well, I suppose he's yeah.
There's a old time song that is also a religious song.
Right.
We are marching on we are marching on. We are blood and fire.
So that was done. I think that was done recently,
yes,
and somebody has come out, I think, from the JLP to say to question this whole idea of blood and fire. And
yes.
You're going back to.
But both of them dabble in this kind of thing when it suits them, because you know that when Norman Manley demonstrated against Siaga, Norman Manley they decided to demonstrate against Siaga because Siaga insulted him right at the eve of independence. Norman Manley, he didn't do it by himself, but Norman Manley caused the stadium to be built, the National Stadium, and then he lost the government. So just like how it is a Labour Rights Bill concrete jungle, you never know that. Labour Rights Bill concrete jungle, but when it was almost finished, them lose the election. So PNP come inherit concrete jungle already built. So it was Norman Manley caused the stadium to be built. And when it's about to be open, him lose the election. And at the opening of the stadium, he went there early as the leader of the opposition, and he went and sat in the royal box. Siaga's Minister of Culture in charge of the whole stadium thing and the opening went there early also and looking around, see if everything all right. Saw Norman Manley sitting in the royal box and tell a policeman to tell Norman Manley come out of the royal box. Insult him, And the policeman go to Norman Manley and tell him, Siaga Semper, come on. He insulted him. And Norman Manley decided, I will never appear with that man in public again. And again, when the statue of Paul Bogue was being dedicated in 1965.
Or the statue of Mr. Bagan.
Yes, Mr. Is Norman Manley's wife did the stat, you know, and she's there now as a guest of honor with her husband.
Yes.
And again, see, I got organized for them don't put no seat there for Norman Manley. So Norman Manley fall in the trap again after them now appear to say again. And them don't go. And it them they put no seat. And then now later that year when they were setting up, when they was reburying Paul Bogle Bones at racecourse, Norman Manley lead a crowd at PNP and go in a racecourse, refuse to sit on the platform and scouting at the crowd with the people. And when Siaga crowning moment, you know, because him bring the bones and as him build up the whole thing. When Siaga go to the platform for talk and take up the mic, Norman Manley do so and put up a power sign and him supported them start boo Siaga start use up Rasta slogan. Kind of PNP always use Rasta slogan. So Norman Manley's supporters start saying blood, blood, blood. Blood and fire, Rasta
so
slogan.
This is from, okay, so this might be where it's coming from.
And Siaga couldn't get to talk for 10 minutes. 3 times he put the mic out. Every time he put the mic, PNP crowd drawn him out. And that's where he burst out now and take the mic and say, well, you think it's you one of gang? That he must say to Norman Manley and the PNP crowd. You think it's you one of gang? If I leave here and go to West Kingston for my gang and come back here, it will be blood for blood. Fire for fire, the whole place. And at that time, gunfire, and that's the political war broke out in Jamaica, October 1965.
So
really broke out.
And here we are.
Yeah.
And here we are. What have we inherited? What have we become?
Yeah, that's old tradition, and there's a glamour along with it. But you know, says our people pay for it, because all of those figures we hear about crime and death and all, is our people paying for it. The only politician, the first politician ever get killed in a political warfare, Roy McGann, on the 14th of October 1980. Roy McGann was the person in charge of the whole Brigadista program.
Yes.
But him grew up as a JLP, you know. And the PNP capture him and bring him in at the PNP, where he was an army officer before. And then put him in charge of the whole Brigadista thing. And him clash with Joan Webley supporters them in a garden town. But outside of that, you're no politician dead in a warfare. Ordinary people.
Right.
Who and as I said, I want to repeat again. The leadership of these organizations, the churches, the churches, the parties, the Rastafari organization, the different organizations, their membership don't know what they are doing. A lot of them are doing a lot of wheeling and dealing and corrupt activity, and the members believe in them sincere because the members don't know what they're doing. The membership of all of these organizations hardly know what their leadership is doing.
What do you think this desperation for the third term, how do you see this playing out, and what do you think?
It's a trophy and a breaking of a cycle. Now, the amount of robbery and thieving we're going over the past years with this regime, I think it broke world record. But you know, it's about regime thief money. But this one world record, and you need more time. You know, some more time. The same reason why Trump didn't need to. Matter of fact, Trump, like Boris Johnson, Boris Johnson, him not get to go to prison because Barney Scotland get obstructed. But Trump had to. That's why Trump go back go run election again, you know, because it was prisoner presidency.
Yes.
And Netanyahu, you know, also.
Of course.
In Israel, not just world court, you know.
Even at the minute as we're talking now.
Yes, Israel government, Israel judiciary and penal system itself.
Yes.
Of charge and serious charge.
Charges,
Serious charge. We're not talking about no shop breaking.
No. So his case is pending, but so for him it's also
prisoner
power. So here we are in a situation where we have totally we're repeating the mistakes of the past, if you will. This great need to cling to power. One of the things that we heard in the early days, coming from this JLP administration, was that one of the things that through the mouth of Andrew Holness, no other.
You're not calling him Dr. Holness.
Dr. Andrew.
That's a part of it.
But I think he wrote his thesis. From what I heard, he wrote his thesis. It's not an honorary doctorate. I heard that he did his dissertation, which is I'm waiting to see because it is on some of what we're talking about, security, Caribbean security.
He's establishing himself as an authority, not just security, but intelligence.
Well, let us see. I've asked for the probably have to do access to information, to get the dissertation.
I'm sorry, I'm breaking
I don't remember what I was asking, but anyway.
So sorry.
But the bottom line, the long and short of it, though, is to say that because he said that one of the things he would do was to ensure that there are term limits But there's been no discussions on that at all.
All the constitution discussion is a joke.
That's another one, and that hasn't. So that's on hold. So let's see what happens after the election, because obviously it's on hold, and we saw the back and forth thing with the PNP and the GLP about that. But you mentioned earlier that really and truly there's no ideological difference between these two right now.
No.
Both are capitalists.
Yes. And the PNP is about two big wings and two small wings. The PNP not that united. And as you know, the backing of most of the wings is highly money driven, not people driven. Capital.
So what does the electorate do when they call the election?
Have you seen? We have won, and have you not seen that in 2020, 37% of the people voted.
Right.
And only 21% of that voted for the JLP.
Right.
The local government election last year, 70% of the people didn't vote. And even though they might use money and draw out more people this time, it's less and less people voting because less and less people are being fooled. But the people are going to come up with an alternative, or more than one alternative, to the JLP and the PNP. Don't matter fret yourself. That will happen. That will happen. And don't make nobody rush and say, how come nothing happening? These things happen organically.
When they happen.
Yes. When the right number and the right variety of people is ready to move, that is when these things happen.
Jerry, thank you very much. I really am going to invite you back. We need 4 hours to kind of walk this through again and to talk about some of the writings coming out of that period.
Yes.
To talk about some of the issues that you raised. Just look at the Brigadista again. Look at that whole program. What was said about it. We didn't even mention the Eventide home when we talk about what the violence was like, and so many other gangs that came out during the period and are still very much functioning in Jamaica right now. This is the legacy of the 70s and the 60s. Thank you so much, Bongo Jerry.
My pleasure.
Much
Thank you very much.
appreciated.
And thank you to the listeners.
All right, this is where we're saying goodbye. Thank you so much for being a part of the program. Right, so, but you've been watching it? No?
I've seen a couple clips and stuff.
Only a couple clips? Yeah. So in terms of the Stampede, you saw that? Were you able? How that looked to you?
Not a good look. I mean, as I said to you off air, I saw a lady, saying that she broke her hand during.
Right, and I thought, See, a lot of people got hurt. Yeah. So we need to hear more from some place what really happened.
Right.
It sound away, it look away. I was saying earlier, the way they dealt with it seemed effective, but it should not have happened.
Right.
That was just my thinking on it. Right. And so, what do you think about the coronation? Oh, you didn't see that? Okay. Anyway, the people them say is Massacre take it, and then the people them say is King take it.
I heard some person saying governor.
Governor, I heard that. Yeah, I heard governor too. So either way, I'm gonna have to go look at the three of them to see which one. I'm gonna watch it myself, to determine which one. But it looks like it was, and I heard from from just reading what's online and in the newspaper, it seems like Sumfest is saying this is the biggest Sumfest ever.
Yeah.
The night there. But Jerry, you got enough Sumfest. Me always see a Sumfest. You paying attention to it?
Not lately.
Not lately. So so the crowd Friday night. It looked big for true.
I hear it as something today.
Yeah.
Stop listening. More time I have to stop listening thing.
No, it's true. Yeah, sometimes you have to turn off. Yes, no, it's true. Sometimes you have to turn off. Because if you do, you.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
As I'm come off of the ear now. More talking, less writing.
There you go. It's true. All right. So may I wait on you now to give us later on, not today, but later on, how it all went down. Making way now for Remain.